when you spend 14 hours a day with someone over a period of 5 years, it is probably, I probably will never spend 14 hours a day with any man in my life, nor he any woman. And so, and the fact that we were extremely compatible.
On a quiet November night in 1981, fog rolled low across the waters of Catalina Island. The sea was still, the kind of silence that makes even experienced sailors uneasy. Through the mist, a single yacht sat anchored in the dark, the Splendor, Robert Wagner's yacht. The same vessel where he entertained Hollywood royalty, where laughter once echoed across the deck. Before sunrise, it would become the center of one of the most enduring mysteries in American history. Natalie Wood, America's sweetheart, star of West Side Story and Rebel Without a Cause, would be found floating in the cold water less than a kilometer from shore, wearing a nightgown, socks on her feet, and a life jacket worn backwards. For more than 4 decades, Hollywood tried to close the door on that night. But in recent months, someone broke the silence, and not a journalist, not a distant critic, but the woman who once stood closest to Robert Wagner himself. At 82, Stefanie Powers, Wagner's longtime co-star from Heart to Heart, sat down for an interview that stopped Hollywood in its tracks. After 40 years of calling Wagner my old friend, she did something she had never done before. She pushed open a door the industry had kept shut. And inside that door were bruises, missing files, hidden interests, and a version of Robert Wagner that no longer matched the man America thought it knew. To understand the weight of Stefanie's words, we must return to the beginning. Thanksgiving weekend, 1981. Wagner, Natalie Wood, and actor Christopher Walken had spent the evening at Doug's Harbor Reef, Catalina's famed restaurant. Wagner later described the evening as pleasant, but restaurant staff remembered it differently. One waiter recalled Wagner slamming his glass onto the table, while Natalie lowered her head in silence. Another diner overheard Walken telling her, "Don't stop acting now," only for Wagner to reply coldly, she should be home with her husband. They returned to the Splendor at 10 p.m. According to the yacht's captain, Dennis DeVaron, the mood changed quickly. He later told 48 Hours there were bottles breaking, shouting, then everything went quiet. At 1:30 a.m., Wagner reported Natalie missing, but several people at the harbor said they heard a woman scream nearly 2 hours earlier. From the first day, the story never lined up. Her life jacket showed no signs of a struggle. There were bruises on her wrists and arms, dismissed as post-mortem. The dinghy she supposedly used to leave the yacht was still tied neatly in place. And in the coroner's private notes, never included in the official report, was a troubling sentence. These injuries are not consistent with a natural fall. For decades, questions lingered. Journalists, family members, even investigators felt the case had been sealed too quickly. It wasn't until 2011, when Captain Davern changed his story, that the investigation reopened. By 2018, Robert Wagner was officially named a person of interest. He remained silent, but Stefanie Powers did not. Stefanie met Wagner on the set of Heart to Heart in 1979. Their chemistry was instant. Viewers saw a flawless partnership. Off-camera, they shared an unusually close bond. She called him her kindred spirit. He trusted her more than most people in his life, which makes her recent interview all the more striking. Stefanie claimed she read Natalie Wood's full autopsy file in 2012. Not the public version, the complete version. According to her, pages were missing when the report was first released in 1981. She remembered seeing notes about circular bruises around Natalie's wrists and deep abrasions on her ribs, details that never appeared in the public documents. Someone didn't want the world to know Natalie struggled, she said. They just wanted to believe she fell. Her statement was not isolated. Vanity Fair journalists confirmed they once saw those same redacted entries. Investigators hinted at missing photographs that mysteriously resurfaced 30 years later. Then Stefanie said something even more unsettling. After the tragedy, Robert was no longer the man I knew. He carried a shadow. Sometimes he would stop in the middle of a scene and stare into space, as if something was still following him. She emphasized she wasn't accusing him. She simply couldn't stay silent any longer. For a woman who defended Wagner for 40 years, a weight of those words cannot be overstated. But to understand why her admission matters so deeply, one must understand Wagner himself, not as the polished gentleman Hollywood sold to the public, but as the man shaped by decades of affairs, jealousies, insecurities, and the complicated dynamic with Natalie Wood. In the 1950s, Robert Wagner was groomed as Hollywood's next aristocrat. 20th Century Fox dressed him as the modern Clark Gable, polished, charming, a perfect studio gentleman. Off-screen, his life was anything but gentle. He was linked to Joan Collins, Debbie Reynolds, Elizabeth Taylor, but the most explosive scandal was his affair with Barbara Stanwyck. 23 years older, the tabloids called it the second spring of a veteran star. Hollywood whispered. Reporters followed them like prey. Then came Natalie Wood. She was 18. America adored her. Wagner was nearly a decade older and struggling to hold on to his status. They married in 1957 in a ceremony broadcast on live television. The nation called them America's golden couple. Behind the smiles, shadows grew. Multiple insiders later said Wagner could not tolerate Natalie's rising fame exceeding his own. Rumors of jealousy followed him on every set. Friends remembered him appearing unannounced whenever Natalie worked with a male director. Their 1962 divorce was quiet, clean, eerily calm. 2 words: irreconcilable differences. Everyone knew it was about more than that. Years passed. They remarried in 1972, a reunion Hollywood celebrated as a fairy tale. But Natalie whispered to friends that Wagner's anger had returned. Their couple's therapist kept notes suggesting she feared his emotional volatility. Those notes never surfaced again until Stefanie referenced them. After Natalie's death, public sympathy carried Wagner for a time, but cracks soon appeared. Just months after the funeral, he sold her Palm Springs home, her jewelry, her art. Officially, it was to support the children. The Wood family was horrified. They believed it was too fast, too cold. Tax records later showed Wagner controlled nearly every commercial deal using Natalie's likeness: film re-releases, photo licensing, merchandising. The Natalie Wood Arts Scholarship Fund was dissolved after 2 years, funds unaccounted for. By 1986, he was seen driving a new Rolls-Royce through Beverly Hills, with Jill St. John, once Natalie's friend, sitting beside him. To the public, it felt wrong, too soon, too polished. Stefanie Powers defended him for years. She thought he was grieving in silence, but decades later, she admitted something changed after 1981. He lived with a kind of fear, she said. Fear and something else. When asked to elaborate, she didn't. She didn't need to. Then came Wagner's memoir, Pieces of My Heart, a book he claimed would set the record straight. Instead, he painted himself as the sole survivor of a tragic love story. Witness accounts were contradicted, critical details softened, some rewritten, some missing entirely. Natalie's sister, Lana Wood, called it a way to hide guilt. Stefanie Powers received an early copy with a handwritten note from Wagner. "This is my truth." She later said she felt parts of the real story were missing, and now, at 82, she has said enough. Her revelations have not accused him directly, but they have reopened every question Hollywood spent decades trying to bury. If the woman who once understood Robert Wagner better than anyone now believes pieces of the truth were hidden, then perhaps the case of Natalie Wood was never closed at all. Perhaps it was simply sealed, and now that seal is cracking. 40 years later, the same question still lingers. What really happened on the waters of Catalina? A tragic accident? A moment of rage? A secret carried by the only people still alive who know. Today, investigators are retired. Witnesses have died. Documents have vanished. But Stefanie Power's voice, calm, measured, steady, might be the final key to a mystery older than most modern Hollywood careers. Not a conspiracy, not a headline, but a truth that refuses to drown. And if she is telling the truth, then what happened that night has never been fully revealed. Not to the investigators, not to the public, and certainly not to Natalie Wood's family. The case may never be solved, but now, at last, the silence is broken.